All right, we'll go ahead and get started. It's water and sewer meeting, April the 11th, 2023. So I have agenda there. Joe, help me put it together, make sure we covered everything. So I'll make a motion, we approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Comments? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Ross will be here. He's still planning on coming, so hopefully he'll be here shortly. Have the March 14th minutes. Were sent out. So would you like to make a motion to approve the minutes from
I'll make a motion.
3rd?
I'll second.
All right, any other comments? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay. Joe, do you want to lead us on your updates?
Yeah, first item on the there is just the update for the wastewater treatment facility. We do have the monthly update that we send to the PCA and of course including the council packets. You know, I saw everybody was kind of perusing that. There's some nice photos in there and a little bit of write-up about what's going on. The contractor continues to kind of keep pecking away at things as the weather improves fairly dramatically here over the last week. Things will start picking up. In terms of what you can kind of see out there, there continues to be progress on the admin building. The roof is pretty close to on with the few items to wrap up. Same kind of goes with the siding. There continues to be HVAC and electrical and plumbing work inside, and those things kind of continue to progress. So over the next week or two, you know, a lot of that roofing and siding stuff should get kind of wrapped up. The other big item that there's lots of activity on is the SBR contractor started up concrete course.
That one. How you doing?
Good, Ross.
You gonna shoot me over on that side?
Yeah, I think we got a spot. Is it over there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm used to being pushed around and shoved in. My wife does it all the time. Go here, come there.
Yeah,
The meeting didn't start yet, did it?
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So in terms of the SBR contractor continues, concrete pours, they've been pouring for a couple weeks now. And they probably got 2-3 weeks of concrete pours left. But they're pouring the elevated walkways, valve vault walls, splitter boxes, miscellaneous pours, and they kind of continue at least a couple times a week, if not more. So they're making good progress on that, and of course, as that work gets done, the electrical, the plumbing items kind of follow up and kind of move forward. So I would expect that as things continue to dry out, we head into real spring here, that we'll start moving dirt again and start backfilling those structures as the SBR concrete pours get wrapped up and the forms get stripped and so on. So lots of activity really throughout the plant, but focused in those two areas. There's a fair amount there. We do have a construction coordination meeting on Thursday at 10 o'clock here. Like I mentioned a few minutes ago, people, if you want to come out and take a look, Thursday, Friday is a good time. I'm going to probably be out there myself, probably after the meeting. If you guys are interested, you're welcome to come. This Thursday. So we meet first and then we'll probably head out there around 11:15, 11:30. Any questions, thoughts about the little update we put together here and kind of construction status items? Second item is the pay request. Dobbs pay request for this month is $355,502.35. 355,502.35. Obviously a a significant pay request, but much smaller than what we have been looking at. And that's just a function of things kind of getting wrapped up and materials that we've already paid for that are on site just being installed. So contractor's still busy, they're still making progress, payments are less because of those reasons. And they're getting things done. Item 3, update on the gas service. So there is somewhat of an update on that. You guys remember that we've kind of been going around and around looking at the different options. The cost to get gas service to wastewater treatment facilities about $67,000. And one of the things that is happening out there is Matthew is selling land to Orinoco Estates for the development of, you know, a fairly significant expansion of the mobile home park. And we were hoping that they would close and be able to demonstrate that they have ownership of the parcel and there would be a need for gas service there. And try to make the argument with Minnesota Energy Resources that, you know, they should have more of an incentive to invest in that main because it serves more than just wastewater treatment facility. I have got some updates from Ron Cox, the gentleman that's kind of heading up the project for them. Ron has indicated that they have worked out their issues with Matthew and they are selling, or they're going to purchase that property. They don't expect to close on the property until September. September. And that I had been told, believed it was gonna be much sooner. And that we might even see a push to start some activities in construction this fall, but in reality, he said they're gonna close on it this fall and probably do work next year. And so subsequently, I've just today, in fact, conveyed that information to the gas company and asked them some questions about sizing and main sizing and cost distributions and trying to get a little bit more information. I'd like to bring that to the council and affirm our direction moving forward so that we can get on their schedule. I think pretty much he's gonna tell me, no, they're not interested in any more of a cost share than what they've already kind of proposed. But we'll see. I've asked the questions. I'll be able to give that information to the council and hopefully we can make some direction and get on their schedule so we can get that main in this summer and have service late summer into fall when we
Has Ron Cox reached out to Minnesota Energy about what their plans are and?
He has not. I did include him on that email that I'd sent out. I think I copied you on it. I copied Kane on it as well. Just kind of inviting Ron to comment because he's been silent.
Yeah. More their concern than ours.
Well, it is and it isn't. I think, you know, he doesn't need gas for another 18 months, right?
Yeah.
So.
Wouldn't it be cheaper if you went in now?
Don't know.
If they have to resize it, put a whole new pipe, who's gotta pay the whole thing?
That's exactly the point of my email. So I asked, you know, how big is the main gonna be? How does the main sizing impact the price you gave us? Do you know that, and I've already told them, but I gave them the closing date that they are planning to expand their facility, you know, fairly significantly. And oh, by the way, here's Ron Cox, who I've copied on this email. He's the project manager, hoping that, Ron would kind of chime in and say, yep. And then I kind of said, is there any avenue for the city to get reimbursed some of the front end cost if indeed this moves forward? And they've already told me no, but I'm just asking again, to kind of reinforce my thought process. And I'm not expecting a different answer, but I felt like I had to ask it again.
So could there be a scenario that we're making a stick to the 67,000, but the requirement for Orinoco Estates may be a larger diameter than what we're planning for, but if we're stuck, not stuck, but if 67,000 looks better than 87,000, if we have to increase the pipe and share more in that cost, I hope not.
Right, well, I would certainly, if that's the case, I would certainly push back and say, you told us it was $67,000 to serve us. We're certainly not gonna pay to oversize it for them. If Ron wants to chip in the cost or half the cost, that's something that they can figure out, but I'm just trying to put the cards out there and get some information so that you guys can make a reasonable decision.
I agree.
So that's what I know about that. I suspect that later this week we'll hear back from gas company. The material delays issue, you guys know that we've had issues specifically with the electrical switch gear at the front end of the plant, and the panel boards to a lesser extent. We did put together letters that went to all of our senators and representatives on the federal level, as well as the governor's office, and a few other folks. And we've had some help, I think, from the senators. Senator Smith specifically has been willing to advocate directly to Eaton for us. The others have been more subdued.
Yeah. My last conversation with Senator Smith's office is that what they did was they sent your letter along with an inquiry asking them, Eaton, to respond to it. So I also have set up, or Jean Poppy, who's their Southeast Minnesota outreach director, her and another lady want to come and tour Orinoco for 1 hour on the 25th to look at the treatment plant and just kind of do a drive around, and I'll show them the maps here and then take a trip out to the wastewater treatment plant. But
yeah, you'll want to tell Staub they're coming and make sure they've got, I can give you hard hats if they, they really won't like it if they don't have that stuff.
And we may not even get out of the car too. But
that's fine too. They might not be, depending on the day, interested.
They said they had 1 hour, so we're not gonna violate that, so we're not gonna stand around. But if we do.
So we have had 2 meetings directly with Eaton and the contractor, as well as Jim and Ryland have been able to sit in both those meetings. The latest one was Monday. The results of the meetings are that I think Eaton understands our situation. I think they're sympathetic. I think it probably helped hearing from Senator Smith, but the reality is they haven't found a way to speed up the process yet. They seem optimistic, guardedly optimistic, that they will be able to speed up the process and deliver next spring, but not this fall. The panel boards, it looks like they will come in this fall. But the switchgear, it sounds like the demand is really high. The contractor has reached out to 2 other suppliers with no better result. So the next thing that is really the next card to play, we're continuing to ask Eaton to push for that, and we'll meet with them in 2 more weeks. We've got a meeting scheduled for, what is it, 24? Yeah, something like that. 2 weeks from last Monday here. And we'll continue to do that, but the other avenue is to work with the electrical contractor, Kilmer with automatic systems and with Staub to see if we can figure out a way to temp the facility with temporary panels at the front end of the plant, much smaller. That's the thing. I think they're limited to maybe 2 400 amp services per panels that they have access to run the whole plant. And whereas that seems like a lot compared to our houses, it's not for the plant. So it's a bit of a challenge to look at the process and say, you know, if we have a limited flow, what components do we absolutely need at what times and what's that total load and can we run it this way? So that analysis is ongoing and I'm hoping we'll have a meaningful conversation with Staub, Kilmer, and automatic systems on Thursday. So that's what I told my people we're pushing for. And that's what I'm pushing for them. My expectation is that if we do go down this route and we are able to have the contractor furnish and install these temporary facilities, that it's not going to be a cost that the city consumes. It's going to have to be a cost that the contractor gets.
Yeah.
And I think we would do that in exchange for not levying liquidated damages to the extent that we could.
Just bring that intent would go a long ways.
Yeah.
So I made a comment at the end, I don't know if it's appropriate or not, but I think the point was we keep meeting every 2 weeks and every 2 weeks we go out. It's just a year from now that schedule slips too. So I was asking for some level of confidence that what they tell us on the 24th of what date they can meet. So hopefully they'll.
Well, and it's good to make them aware that we're listening and that, you know, this is a big deal. And
Yeah.
And we need to hold schedules and we need, you know, things need to come together from that perspective. So we need to kind of continue to remind them of that. So I'm glad it's not just me that is saying that. So
Joe, it is Stantec that's gonna do the analysis to say you can run like this part of the plant and then this part of the plant. Just don't turn the lights on over here. You're gonna have too much power and flip everything on.
well, that's what we're doing. Yeah.
But you guys are doing that, right? And then if you guys say it's feasible, then you'll ask them to cover the cost to make it happen.
You know, and I'll say that some of my process guys aren't real happy about doing the analysis and people don't like risk, you know. What if, you know, there's all kinds of what ifs. Well, there's a lot of what ifs and bad things that happen if we basically mothball the plant for 18 months or 12 months or whatever it takes. And then Ellingson comes back in and Fitzgerald come back in with claims for delays, and same way with Staub. You know, there are ramifications if we delay, but there are also, you know, the suppliers aren't gonna like temp. You know, they're not gonna like that in terms of I gotta warranty all this equipment and I've got less protection than I normally would have, and so it's not a perfect scenario either way. And I'm trying to gather the information. And again, I want to bring that back to you guys and we'll make the decision together. But there's risk on both sides. The do nothing risk, the move ahead and temp facility, there's risk on both sides. And then I think that the best scenario is probably the temp facility, but I want to hear more from.
We wouldn't invalidate any of the warranty on this equipment by setting it up with temp service as opposed to the proper way it was supposed to be. It would invalidate any of that, would it?
I think that's something we need to talk about, because
Cause that's
They might-
expensive equipment.
absolutely it is. And they might push back that way, you know, but I'm hoping that it doesn't. You know, I think we need to look at that. That's part of the risk analysis is, you know, the other thing that happens is that equipment gets installed and it sits there for 18 months. What does that do? There's risk there too, you know. And the suppliers might come back with the same argument. So.
So when I think of pumps sitting there, are they gonna be sitting in some type of lubricant? Or they case fill them, or how do they maintain so they don't, not that they'll rust up, but it just seems like there needs to be some preventative fluid or something in there, just in those pumps, but maybe not.
Better question for the wastewater process people. I don't know, you know, they're pretty much designed to sit in a pretty caustic environment and
Yeah,
at
that's
least wouldn't be sitting in wastewater,
Yeah.
right? You know, be sitting in essentially clean water. But
Just a thought, but just
Yeah.
something sitting there idle for that many months.
You wouldn't wanna take ownership until you could prove everything worked either though. Right?
right, and substantial completion doesn't start until it's substantially complete and operational. And that's when your warranty starts at substantial completion, right? And so, well, that's where the argument gets difficult. The biosolid loadout configuration changes, nothing's really new on that. We've given the information to the contractor to get cost information back. We haven't got it yet. Contracts 2 and 3, the Fitzgerald contracts, project status 20, was sent out on April 7th, last Friday. That is worth mentioning. I did hand it out, and the reason it's really worth mentioning is because not that they're not all worth mentioning, they are, but this one in particular is kind of the kickoff to the construction season. And the thing that I would most highlight is the reclamation of the bituminous roadways. So that's when that big reclaimer comes in and essentially grinds up the asphalt, mixes it with the underlying aggregate, and you end up with a gravel road. And so with that comes maintenance, with that comes dust. And with that comes construction activity. So Fitzgerald's crews are really kind of kicking up this week, and that reclaiming process starts tomorrow. And so no doubt there'll be calls. The reclaimer does go through. They do have a blade that will reshape that, and they'll have a compactor, a steel drum compactor to pack that back down. But you know, it's a big deal in terms of the start of construction. You can kind of see the area on the map. The areas in blue, those are the streets that get reclaimed. The first place southeast is Stokes Cove area. That's a dead end street, long dead end street. That will impact those folks. And then of course, pretty much everything that gets disturbed east of Minnesota Avenue in the downtown area, both north and south of the river, is going to get reclaimed. So again, that starts tomorrow, and they'll probably reclaim probably all week, or a good chunk of the week, certainly Wednesday and Thursday, and maybe into Friday, depending on how long they're going to go and how it goes.
So this is the only time until after Gold Rush, if we're gonna bring that machine in for reclaiming, is that right?
That's the plan.
So we got
Sure, you know,
April, May,
It is
June,
here.
one
July.
sitting over there
Yeah.
across the highway.
So, like we do over on First Avenue, First Street, and I don't know, we did West Center, we had information by the Are the mailboxes for residents, are we doing that down here? Same type of information?
I don't know that we've set it out there yet. We don't have any temp mailboxes up yet because we haven't started moving mailboxes. But I did email it out. It's posted on the Facebook and website and they're sitting here. We were posting it when we put the temporary mailbox.
There's not too many mailboxes downtown,
Well, there's not
a
as
few
many.
maybe, but nothing like over there.
They're spread out pretty good. Couple here and there. So.
Just-
You get the sense that people know about it, or you think no, people don't know?
I haven't heard nobody say nothing about it, either. Thinking about it, I don't think.
No. Well, they'll see the reclaimer tomorrow. The whole process isn't, that process isn't terribly disruptive. You can still get in and out of your driveway and, there might be a little bit of delay as the reclaimer goes by and the blade catches up, but it's not a big deal, or it shouldn't be a big deal.
And I wasn't thinking so much of the reclaiming, it's just, they're gonna be down here all summer, all winter, all summer, yeah.
When the excavator goes by your house and there's a 20-foot hole in front of it, that's
That'll be
when
different.
things change. And then it decides to rain for a week. So in terms of what's going on or what Fitzgerald doing, that's really in the update as well. Right now they have a crew working kind of in front of the schoolhouse on the south side of the river, installing some small diameter force main for the low pressure system. And they also have a crew installing force main from Lift Station 4 to Cedar Point Road. In Cedar Woodlands. And so that is also kind of in the rear lot area. And then next week they'll have another crew starting force main installation through the field between the wastewater treatment facility and Orinoco Estates. We want to make sure we get that in before the farmer shows up to start working and planning. That should go pretty quickly. We're hoping less than a week for them to get in and out of there. And if this type of weather really makes a huge difference, it was pretty wet there at one point this spring. So those conditions are improving. And then, of course, we are emphasizing that the contractor's got a lot of catch up. So putting castings on structures, fine grading, picking rock, cleaning culverts, getting seed in the ground. Well, not quite yet, but within the next 3 weeks or so. And so that's been a kind of a point of emphasis. I've also been pushing them to get the live stakes installed on the riverbank stabilization. There's a really small window. Live stakes are basically cuttings of willows and dogwoods and things like that, that literally you take a cutting of them and shove them into the side of the bank. And if conditions are right and you time it right, they essentially grow. So it's a fairly inexpensive way to vegetate a stream bank with dogwoods and willows and things like that, that are really fabulous if you can get them established. Really not very easy to do that. A lot of times they're not successful, but they're pretty inexpensive. So we push the contractor to do that.
So you're gonna strip all the streets now then?
No, rock stays there.
Yeah, but what I mean, you're gonna grind them all. Oh,
Not all, basically just the ones in blue. If you can see that. So everything west of Minnesota Avenue doesn't really get touched.
then I was just wondering, Joe said he wanted to get to my place down there until the end of July or 1st August.
So the contractor requires them to come in twice to reclaim, to mobilize that reclaimer in and reclaim twice, once in the spring and once midsummer. And the reason for that is costly to bring the reclaimer in.
And hopefully we can get on a fairly routine schedule watering too. And not be such a hit and miss
Right,
like it was on West Center Street and First Street.
right.
Well, if they just get it smoothed out, soaked up really good, pack it. Then it would get a hard surface on it, it wouldn't be so dusty. Lays there moving around, well, that's when you get the dust.
At least the water's here. The water at the fire hydrant,
Right.
it's just trucking it so much.
So that's kind of the big picture update for
What's the status of the generators at the lift station for at least?
they're ordered. There's two generators, one permanent generator at lift station one. And that's placed on a concrete pad, which hasn't been poured yet, and then there's a mobile generator. That. You know, you can go around to the other smaller lift stations.
Is that a trailer mount?
Yeah.
Oh, mobile, okay.
It sounded like Kilmer had it. Kilmer had the mobile generator, I thought.
I don't know, or I haven't been asked to pay for it, and I'm sure they'd wanna check if they had it, so I know that we approved the shop drawings and I know it's been ordered. But whether they have it or not, I haven't been told they have it. Electric service to the lift stations, that's one of the things that People's Co-op is working on. We've had a series of meetings with them over the last month. I think that they've kind of mapped out, because they are bringing 3-phase to all of those lift stations. Not all of them, almost all of them. Except for a couple of the small ones. And so they've mapped out their route, and I do think that they have the transformers on hand. And so that should be moving forward here soon. They haven't given me their final cost to install that, but we do have a pretty healthy allowance, about $100,000 to have all that done. So hopefully we're within that. But I expect that, in fact, I expected it.
Did you say they'll start working on the seeding and finishing the right of ways?
That's been a direct conversation that I've had with them, yes.
Okay, so are they covering the rocks up with dirt, or are they actually gonna pick them up before they?
So they should be picking rock, similar to what they've done elsewhere, where it's warranted. Obviously, if there's not much rock or it's real small stuff, then they're gonna.
Keep Jason away from the seeding machine.
The Fitzgerald pay request is $180,245,070. So
One more time, 180,000.
$180,245.70. By the way, all of the lift stations are in. And there's really only one significant lift station payment, and that's the small, lift station 1B in Cedar Woodlands, that was installed here 3 weeks ago. But a pretty small, modest pay request from their perspective for this time. But they did kind of pull back a lot of their forces when it got real wet there in late March. We do need to have an open house to kind of kick off construction and talk about construction impacts, talk about service connections, talk about everything we know will impact people. And I'd like to have that probably early May. I wanted the council and this group to pick a date, and we'll prep for it and get some notices out to folks.
You go up by then, the firm date, one look at that switch gearing. That plays a big role in it.
It does play a big role in it. And that's one of the things I've been kind of dragging my feet a little bit on some of that, because I don't know what to tell people, specifically the people that get a grinder station, because we can't start that unless I can't even start to. It's not that we have to tie them over, but they could sink the grinder stations and they could directional drill some of the pipe. They just don't have to tie it all together. But without a firm date of, yeah, we're gonna go down this temp service route, or yeah, the switchgear amazingly is gonna come in on time, or we're just gonna, we gotta have that information and be able to make a decision so we can tell them something. And right now, I'm just telling people that nothing is gonna happen until the second half of the summer after July. I know that for sure. And so best case scenario is they're doing that work this fall. But I don't know what else to do, but just tell people, it's the truth. It's what we know. But one of the things that people do need to do is they need to get that electric service lined up so that when the contractor does come, we can connect them. And so that's one thing that we need to disseminate that information and start pushing. So, and then there's also the water connections. We've got meters at this point.
We got them all.
And so over the next week or so, I'll finalize the connection guidance for both the water and sewer. Probably work with Kane on some of those pieces. But and then we'll have them ready in advance and probably send them out in advance of the public open houses. And maybe it makes sense to even have 2, 3 of those, just have them. Like we did the easement things where we pick a couple nights in a row, 1 week and then 1 or 2 mornings in a row.
Calendars, I was just looking at a date between Parks, Gold Rush, water and sewer, availability of the township room, P and Z, and council on the 16th. It's the earliest, I think, is probably May 15th, a Monday night, or May 18th, or the following week and a half, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th.
Okay. And I could, I can come in the morning too. One day if you think people will come.
That's definitely the downtown people, so that they should hopefully take an interest in walking over the drive.
Well, and the people that want to initiate their connection, that that all needs to happen too. So
All of the water users, anybody who could potentially hook up to water could come and.
Right.
Just
So the week of the 22nd may be good for multiple days or evenings, whatever.
and I can send information out as well in advance of that by email, and we can post some things on the website. But
We should check with Renee about, make sure this room's available, but
some time.
that 24th Wednesday morning, maybe seniors group or exercise, but Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday in the mornings.
Fridays are bad too, because people are starting to think about getting out for weekends and doing stuff at that time of year.
So,
Fridays are bad too,
yeah, I
people,
was
trying to get out of
excluding
town or
Wednesdays and
whatever.
Fridays,
Yeah. Okay. Well, you want to talk to Renee and see
Yes, I can.
what you might be best? I'm pretty flexible. I can make stuff work.
So the week of the 22nd. Would be kind of the week we're looking at.
Yeah, I think we should do a couple of them.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple at night and 1 in the morning, or whatever you guys want to do, but
Like a Monday night, Tuesday morning, Tuesday evening.
yeah.
something like that.
You know, we could take this time slot too. If that's interested.
Yeah, that's true, that's, it'd be the 9th. This room isn't available on Monday night for township.
Anything else on that, or you want guys look at sewer alignments?
Sewer
Well,
line.
look at sewer alignments, don't you? So these 11 by 17 maps, we've got about 3 locations where we are proposing a revised sewer alignment to mitigate a problem. So the first one is on Timberline Drive. At Timberline Drive, there's that low spot that the big drainage swale that goes through. So if you guys are familiar with that, you can see the 3 54-inch culverts kind of going diagonally under Timberline Drive there. That's a big drainage way. And so
Second. And the upper, and the green and yellow,
So I'll explain that, what that is. So the green is what was previously proposed. We had previously proposed to directional drill a sanitary sewer pipe in that area that eliminates an existing lift station that currently pumps all the Timberline Drive wastewater to the drain field. And so we want that to gravity flow to the gravity sewer that gravity flows to lift station 1. And so we had proposed a directional drill underneath the culverts from the trunk main to, again, approximately that existing lift station location, and we would intercept that. Well, the contractor came in and started directional drilling it, and we hit rock underneath the box or underneath those big culverts. So we didn't hit rock digging the deeper sewer main in to the west. And to the north, there's a pond that's deeper, you know, I can't explain why there's rock there, but there's rock there, so we can't drill through it, without spending exorbitant amount of money. And so we're looking for an alternative, and so the alternative is illustrated in yellow. And so in the alternative, we would essentially go, instead of going in front of that existing home, we would go behind it. We could still go in front of the home, but we would have to open cut it and blast all that rock and remove and replace the 54-inch culverts and reconstruct his driveway and reconstruct parts of it would be painful. So we think that we can install this behind the house. There is an existing permanent easement back there that is a drainage easement. It's not a utility easement. And so technically we should acquire a utility easement from that property owner that essentially overlays the drainage easement. So I guess that's what I'm kind of proposing. I think that the additional cost to do what's in yellow versus what was in green is about $8,600. So not a very significant additional cost in the scheme of things, but we do have to acquire that easement, and you know, we might have to pay a little bit for that easement.
So when they lose 10 trees, is that what I'm reading in their backyard? Or their view?
Yeah, they're kind of a natural wooded area back there, and then there's a pond farther to the north.
it's quite a slope there, isn't it?
It's steep. Really steep. And so I guess I wanted to talk to you guys and make sure that this is something reasonable, and if it is, we'll go talk to the property owner.
So is this open trench or?
Yes. Yeah, and you can see from the profile down below, not very deep. you know.
I mean, it'd be less disruptive is what you're proposing, because otherwise the
Yes.
entire driveway is gonna get ripped up.
Yeah.
Go in front of the house, right?
And
So
we'd
have
be
the homeowner
pounding rock out through that area and,
patch job. The back is probably gonna be their preference.
it makes sense to me. That's what I would do too. But I think we need to talk to the property owner and make sure that we can come to terms there and that would be fair or reasonable from their perspective. Cause either way, there's disruption. I just think it, you know, it should be much quicker and less disruptive, the yellow route versus the green.
You keep talking about the green route, the map I got only has yellow on it, no green. So I'm,
Sure it does. I can see the green from here.
So there's a retaining wall.
Right here.
oh, that's green.
There's the green
I'm
line there.
colorblind in red and green, so
There you
it
go.
looks like black to me. Okay,
No, I see, I can see it. It's a dark green, no doubt. Hopefully everybody can see that.
thank you.
So that's what the plan is there.
When were you gonna talk to the homeowner?
Well, probably soon.
I see a retaining wall too. Behind his deck,
Yep,
will that be removed or?
no,
Okay. Or can we cite it?
no. And we're only about 6 feet deep there. Adjacent to that wall and we're
I see, okay.
about
yeah,
10 feet off it, so we should be okay.
Okay,
And if we have to, we can pull a box, or not we, the contractor can pull a box through there, but it's pretty shallow. So unless it's real sandy, it'll be fine.
I think it's a good idea. For a modest cost.
Yeah, and that's what Fitzgerald wants to do. We kind of looked at this with Joe too, and we all kind of agree this is probably the thing to do. The second page, there's little numbers on the top right. Go to number 2. This is out on Minnesota Avenue. So it's really at the intersection of Minnesota Avenue and Cedar Point Road, southeast, so not just north of the Gas and Go. You guys maybe know that there's a an a gas,
Reducing station for the city.
yeah. Yeah, right there, and we're pretty close to that, and we kind of skim by that, but the gas mains coming out of that weren't mapped correctly. And they're closer when you actually get locates in the field to what the locates that showed up on the plan were. And so we need to push out from that. And so the proposal is to essentially run alongside the roadway. We'll end up taking out the shoulder of the bituminous shoulder of the road for this 1, 2, 3, about 400 feet. So, you know what that shoulder is, I think 6 or 8 feet wide. We'd end up saw cutting that and putting that back. But that gets us farther away from the buried gas and we can do it safely. Again, what's shown here in green is what was there. What's shown and highlighted in yellow is what we want to do at this point. So again, this is a fairly modest modification. It really doesn't require any property owner consent or anything. You know, it's a $5,000-6,000 ad. Not a big deal in the scope of things. I just letting you know.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
I think so too.
The last one,
Just before you leave that one, so on the very right side, where it connects going up Cedar Point Road. Then the SA 2.63, is that a manhole where Tom Gathier's will system hook into then?
mm-hmm. So yeah, from 2.63 is a manhole. So we basically get underneath the ditch there. And then we stub towards Gathier's. You can see 2. Upstream at 2.6, if you draw a straight line about 50 feet, you hit a manhole,
Circle there.
that's their lift station.
Oh, okay.
And so that's how they connect. They would have to fill in, or we would have to fill in that little hole, that little gap, going up that back slope. Jump to 3. 3 has a few pages, one is streets, one's roads. So the green is the old alignment. If you look, and so this is this East Center Street, and it's not labeled, but the main north-south street is Minnesota Avenue. So right in the middle of the page is the post office, and then Grace Lutheran on the right side of the alley there, Half Avenue. So the issue here is that Bevcom installed a fiber optic, and they put a vault right over our alignment. And they did this probably a couple years ago. So they did this when we were essentially bidding the project. And in spite of having our stuff, that's where they're at. And so we either can make them move, or we can move our stuff, but they really don't want to move their stuff. I think it's the fiber optic that served most of town. It'd be expensive and disruptive. And so I think the best avenue is for us to move, even though it's not the city's problem.
So will they pay for it?
I doubt it.
Well, but they had to move their stuff, they would pay for it,
They
right?
would,
And wouldn't it cost more than $12,147 for them to move their stuff?
they would.
So then why wouldn't they pay for this?
Been doing this a long time and I've never seen it happen. I don't even ask.
A whole lot of risk too.
Yeah. So the issue here is it's the same amount of pipe for us. In fact, it's one less manhole for us. So we save a little less, we save a little money by putting the pipe in the street, but obviously we have to fix the street. That's the bad part because East Center Street's new. And we were trying to avoid impact. So basically from the alley, the half avenue to through Minnesota Avenue to about halfway to First Avenue, we've got to reconstruct that street. So again, we're probably looking at 400 feet of street, and we're looking at taking half the street, except on the west side of Minnesota Avenue. We're going to take the whole street because it's not in good shape anywhere, right in front of the VFW. So I figured you'd like that anyway, get a new street there. But we are looking at saving the new curb and basically just taking out the lane of pavement. So it does add costs. It adds about $12,000 in costs. It's kind of a shame because we're taking up, basically half of a street of one block of new pavement. I don't like doing that, but that's where we're at in order to avoid that. I think west of Minnesota Avenue, that street, probably, that's a good thing. Because it needs it going up that hill.
So this will be done after Gold Rush in?
Probably not. Probably before.
But this is so what's the time frame for all of this that we're looking at? From First Street all the way up to First Street Avenue or First Avenue?
How long will that take?
Yeah, or when was that, like a
What's
May?
the timing?
Or is it
Like,
No,
July?
I don't know. Getting that type of detail out of Fitzgerald's is a miracle.
Main question is they're gonna put us out of business by this.
Yeah, no, it will take some time. They are reasonably deep through there. There will be rock as we get to Minnesota Avenue. And beyond. But it is certainly doable. So again, I've kind of looked at some alternatives. I like to stay in the. I like to avoid impacting new streets when I can, but I think we're out of options here too. And so the second street is just kind of illustrates, it's a little harder to read, but it illustrates where the pavements would be reconstructed. I can do with that. There's a little bit more to this puzzle than you guys see, but I think we needed to confuse the issue any more than.
Quick question, is the only conflict just that little circle where the fiber optic fault is?
That's the biggest one.
The rest of the green is fine, like, you can't just go like around. Like, like right here, just gotta go out, and that way you're not taking out the whole road.
Well, anytime you turn a sanitary sewer, you add a manhole, and each one of those manholes is probably $5,000-6,000.
Yeah, so there's no such thing as a curve, it's.
No, no,
It's
they're all
like
straight
sand.
lines.
Okay. Just asking.
Yeah.
And Bevcom won't pay anything.
So when you get in this First Ave or Minnesota Avenue and Center Street, east or west, make sure you work with the post office, because that truck comes in from the south at 4 o'clock every day, or there's one in the morning too.
Yeah.
So there's a pretty firm schedule. I mean, they can still get in from the north, but they need to be aware of those states that they're gonna be having to go the alternate route.
Oh,
Same thing.
crossing Minnesota Avenue, you mean?
They come in on Minnesota Avenue from the south to the post office.
Oh,
And so that's what you need to talk to the post office to let him know what days he's gonna have to come in from the north. To the post office.
yeah. Well, there's half a dozen Minnesota Avenue crossings from here to Hunter Street that are gonna have to happen.
Just saying, the post office should be aware of it, so.
No, you're right.
We're not worried about school buses, but it's definitely the post office.
Yeah.
So will you pin Fitzgerald down then for a time frame, so we'll know what the interruption will be for, like Gold Rush and things? Like, do you think this is reasonable for them to be like, okay, this is gonna take 3 months, and I'm gonna do it from X to Y?
Well, they've kind of given us that information about what they're projecting for the first half of the summer. But whether they'll get going and they can put something on paper, but they don't stick to it very well.
Which is,
So
this is like the center of town, like a key road. Like, could they stick to that?
Yeah.
Like, it's not a side street, it's kind of important.
And anytime you cross Minnesota Avenue, it's gonna affect fire and first responders and sheriff and ambulances coming through from Mayo and.
So we expect that we will have the bi-weekly updates, we'll have maps, they'll have to stick to that. But knowing much beyond that with any certainty.
Yeah.
I think, you know, you're kidding yourself if you think we're really gonna get a week by week. This is what we're gonna do all summer.
Weather can affect what?
Weather can affect it a lot, production can affect it, who they have available can affect it, lots of things can affect it, but.
This is kind of a major intersection and it really, really, really affects Gold Rush a lot. And I think we're gonna have to try and get kind of a fine timetable out of them, just so that, otherwise they could end up shutting down the whole event, basically.
That's the conversation we've had with Fitzgerald, that No,
We've had lots of discussions with Fitzgerald about Gold Rush and then need to mitigate impacts during that time and plan around it and, you know, had that discussion.
most likely to be all gravel.
They've been,
That would be a good time to trench that in. It ain't gonna affect anybody. They got it all fixed up for gold.
so. So these are the three areas that we're kind of focusing on, that there has been changes. But,
Well, the first two are minor in dollar value, the second one's major, but I think there should be a little more negotiation with the Bevcon, say, hey, you know, you can move it, or you can kind of help us out and we'll go around you. I don't know if they do that, but
we can ask. I'm not sure that we're gonna be successful. I haven't in the past.
So when that line comes up East Center Street to First Avenue. Is there a determination they're gonna go up Center Street to Minnesota Avenue before going up First Avenue? Or
I don't know.
can we ask to make that to just to make sure that we're done with this as early as possible
That's
before they go up First Avenue Northeast?
Yeah, they're, a month away from doing any of this, so we haven't
Oh,
had
yeah,
that
I mean-
discussion at all,
yeah, but if
maybe
If they
longer.
get that done, 2 months from now, then it'll be all covered back over for Gold Rush.
And Joe's very much aware of that too, so I hope he.
their schedule, Ryland says May for Center Street. That was the schedule they gave us back in January.
Okay.
They had Center Street on the schedule for May. June, a little bit more on the west side of town, and then July, everything moves to the east side of Minnesota Avenue.
They stick to that, should be good. Okay.
So what we'll likely do is prep a change order, kind of summarizing these revised plan sheets and a little bit of additional contract costs.
26,000.
The sooner we do that, the better though, right? The sooner we do that, the better, because then we can plan and
I
shift priorities to get the.
Yeah, I don't know that they're gonna wait, or we're gonna wait for the change order to materialize. That's kind of a formality. I think everybody kind of agreeing that this is, yeah, what we're gonna do and why we're gonna do it is what we.
I didn't know legally if they had to wait till. Before they start ripping the road up and then go, oh, we didn't give you a change order, that's like.
No, if we did stuff like that, we'd never get anything done.
This work around this shift, you say is supposedly gonna happen in May? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I just caution you that the dates that they kind of throw out.
Well, May, June, you know, it's still. That's far enough away from Gold Rush that we get something back in the streets so that they're kind of closed up, and even if they're gravel, people know what to expect. But if you're tearing it up at the end of July, it'd be questionable whether Gold Rush is gonna survive.
Trenches.
Yeah.
Anything else? Otherwise we'll move on to the miscellaneous updates.
The real property declaration, is complete with the exception of sending the recorded document back to them. Do you know if the city got that?
And
So these are the recorded easements and sewer maintenance agreements. They're for the city's file.
oh, okay,
I have copies. These are the originals though,
okay.
of all of those documents. And so I brought them out.
Yeah.
So you would have them, somebody will want them someday, but they've all been recorded at the courthouse. I've got copies or PDFs of all of them. But you guys get to keep the originals and it's, I've numbered them and nicely organized them within these packets. These are the stuff, this is how the county mailed it back to me after they were recorded, but they're all organized and ready to go. They just should go in your file.
Okay.
The discussion regarding the 1 year time frame for utility. Sewer and water connections. I don't know what we want to say about that at this point.
Well, there's an awful lot we can, because if you're gonna, if the plant's not gonna be functional for a year later. Then it shoves everything back for people to connect.
You know,
What kind
that's
of,
all dependent on too, and I think they still need 2 construction seasons to connect. But that may be dependent on.
Right.
It's more, it's to be determined because of our operational start time, but I don't think we need to change anything till we get a firm date.
Well, I think we can maybe at least tell people that we're city's gonna consider an extension of those dates if it's warranted. That's fair, right? Right?
The other thing is if we still, for the people that are gonna hook up with water, for the new water users, they should be aware that the 1 year could change to 2 years. Because if that happens this year, they don't get into the summer, they won't make it by only a couple months next year. If we go with 1 year, so maybe we should just go ahead and bring it to council for a 2 year construction season
that
after that
definitely,
operational date.
I agree with that. You might as well go for 2, because otherwise you could put people under extreme hardship to even try and come close to meeting that deadline.
We should have some idea if the question comes up at our May open houses, so.
It will come up.
Yeah.
Yeah, well.
Can you think of anything else in the ordinance, this utility ordinance that's gonna change? That we need to make any, outside of this connection time?
I just think essentially anyone who's gonna be getting served water. Besides First Place. I mean, they could potentially hook up here in weeks to come. I mean, they're doing their bacteria samples, they're pressure tested. I mean. People on West Center, 9th and First Street. They could all hook up to water.
Very quickly.
Very
Put the
quickly.
water line and the sewer line.
Yep, but then I think about the other areas that are gonna get water only, or the individuals that are gonna get water only. I mean, within the next month, they can hook up.
And they don't have to hook up. They do have a window available to them. And, you know, the question is, do we extend that window or not, I guess? Now or later?
If there's any thinking that we need to extend it, I'd rather just do a 2-year now and not have to deal with it later on.
So everybody hooked up by,
When if 2 years after a start of operation. Now, the water, I guess, could be 1 May till May 2025. Sewer might be October of 2025. No, it won't be.
If they have a
26.
single contractor coming in to do both. You know, they're not gonna wanna bring somebody in once, dig a trench and then,
Well, there's not many. No, most people that are getting both sewer and water are all, they're on the low pressure sewer, so they don't have to deal with that side of it. So.
Well, let's bring it back at the May meeting. And, water and sewer meeting, and maybe we'll get a better date from our switch panel people.
Okay.
And we're getting closer to a firmer date than we know now, but we may know something in May. Or for at the May meeting, and before we have our,
open houses.
we have our water and sewer meeting, we have a council meeting, and then have our information meeting where you can have maybe a decision by then. Because we could have. If we meet on the 24th. Still very much in limbo, we can still get one back, well, 2 weeks, and that's May 8th. Water and sewer is on May 9th and council's on the 16th, so. We have 2 more meetings, if he agrees to that. Should we do that? Okay, Kane, what do you say? Nobody's talking up here, what's your opinion?
I'd say everyone get hooked up to water by January 1, 2025. That's the deadline. That gives everyone a full season, a full construction season, 2024, plus parts of this construction season.
Water and sewer together could be later, just because the water and the sewer line are in the same trench for the majority of the grinder stations.
Is that gonna be a lot of,
Why don't you say 2 years from when both facilities are available?
so that date for availability is gonna be coming up soon for water. Right, certain areas in town with the new water improvements, so. I just don't know if that's gonna be a lot to manage. This neighborhood was May, this neighborhood was June, this neighborhood was. Does that get messy? It seems kind of messy to me, but if I don't have to keep track of it.
I mean, we already agreed that we would definitely give a 1-year extension. That's what we had already talked about.
So,
So if the latest thing though, that's gonna throw the monkey in the wrench. So is the gearbox thing, right?
switch gear stuff,
Which
yeah.
That's potentially now October 2024 will be the latest. Right? Shouldn't go beyond that. So you just say by the end of 2025, you have to be hooked up to sewer and water, that'd be a year.
Well, but
After
it
completion
doesn't
goal.
say, there's no dates in the ordinance. It says a year after availability right now, 12 months after availability. And things won't be available if treatment facility is not operational. So that's gonna essentially dictate when at least some people's connection is available.
But I guess like to Kane's point, the people who have like just water could get it sooner. And people who have water and sewer, you wouldn't want to do it sooner because you're gonna want to do it together. And so if you want to have one date.
Well, not everybody though. Some people will do it separately and it would be just fine.
They're paying for it?
Well, the sewer gets installed by the city's contractor, and so the only time that makes sense is if you have a long sewer service and they need to be in joint trench. And so that's, you know, probably a dozen properties that really is targeting.
But I guess. From a council perspective, they can't be like, well, those 12 people get this long, these people get this long, right? It looks unfair. So then you just kind of gotta give a general date for everybody that. Of X. And so then you just go with your 2-year thing. And then everybody has got the same rules. Nobody can say they were favored. And you'll have people who aren't gonna wait. But then people who need to or want to
Have to.
have a deadline, have to, right? The point is you gotta have a deadline.
You have to have a deadline. I agree.
And you wanna make it equitable so that people don't feel favored. And then to your point, you don't have to keep track of all of it. But you're this date, I'm this date.
So the only people getting water only are people behind Tilly's and north of Tilly's.
Well, there's people on Fifth Street that get water only, and there's people by Tilly's that get water only.
Okay,
Basically, you're talking people on the west side of the highway that.
Fifth Street's on the east side of the highway.
Okay.
Is there a disadvantage to setting a 2-year date?
Maybe it's too early to try and set that date at this point.
Well, October 2024, I heard is the worst possible scenario. So that means October 2026 would be your 2 years. Is there a bad thing about making that an absolute deadline? Is there a risk, something that would be detrimental to the city?
well, the only thing, we start putting dates, months. And years and, you know. We like to think it's gonna start up. Everything goes smooth and away we go, and all of a sudden we have another 2-month delay for whatever reason. That we're talking about, so now we're on 2 more months, you know, so we just keep it. To that sustainable operation date and just go out 2 years from that. Like the ordinance. I like the idea of a month and a year, but at the same time. I think we need a little flexibility in there too, or. Lift station doesn't work right, I don't know, just some. Murphy's Law will apply somewhere along the line. It's almost.
I personally, I don't think, because I do think people have to get a formal notice in the mail that they're eligible or their sewer and or water is available for their connection. The ordinance really requires that the city send that, so that's a means of tracking that, and we're not gonna do it in 1s and 2s, we're gonna do it in the whole neighborhood, you know. I really don't think it's gonna be egregiously difficult to track.
So you're saying put it off or don't do it.
I think I would stick with so many months after it's available. And whether that's 12 months or 24 months, I guess 36, whatever you wanna do. But I would try to stay as aggressive as I can towards that, because financially it's gonna decrease the burden on the city, and you do wanna encourage people to connect.
Well, let's keep the discussion going and come back in May, and if we get some maybe firm dates from the Eaton people, and
The wastewater treatment facility operators. I don't have an update on that. I know Sunny's working to develop that RFP. I haven't been asked to review it. I don't know where she's at with it.
Dylan was gonna review it too, he said.
Yes. I'm assuming that it's not complete. Yeah, that's why we haven't been asked. The same goes, we were gonna send a letter to the developers about the decommissioning of the community waste treatment systems. Haven't seen a draft of that either. Obviously, not knowing when the treatment facility is gonna start up is an issue.
probably the one key thing to the private owners is, if their 5-year permit's coming up and they have to do it for another year. Maybe they weren't planning on that, and now they find out, oops, I gotta go another year, you know, so they need to be aware of that date, so. We should be getting that out there to them
I,
ASAP.
we try to be as proactive there as we can be.
All right. Anything else? Touch base on? That's all that I had. Anybody else have anything? Make a motion, the meeting adjourn at 7:52. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
They would say this Thursday morning, though, that's gonna be like 11:15.
Yeah.